So, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the pre-recorded part of the AGM this evening, and I'm delighted to have with me a very, very special guest. Born in Lewisham, South London, former Saracens Women in England flanker, none other than Sunday Times Sportswoman of the Year in 2010, awarded an MBE in the Queen's Birthday Honours in 2012, 2015 World Cup Ambassador, inductee to the Rugby Hall of Fame, alongside fellow Saracens such as Michael Liner and Lisa Burgess, none other than Maggie the Machine Alphonsi. Maggie, good morning.
Hi, Steve, and hi to everyone who's obviously going to be watching this on pre-record. Thanks so much for having me on, and what a fantastic introduction. I feel like I could listen to you all day talk about how
I'll happily send it over to you, Maggie. It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. And I had to compress it down to those as just the highlights. I mean, what a glittering career, and what a serious set of achievements that you've got there. But before we go on to talk about your career, if I may, it's been a funny year with rugby. There's been lots of talk of expansion and ring fencing and growing. The first thing I've got to ask you is there's been a significant expansion to the Alphonsi household since October. How's little Artie? How's everybody doing?
Gave birth to a little boy called Artie Wynne Alphonsi back in October the 2nd, 2020, and he's now 9 months. Going on to being 13, he acts like a teenager. For those with parents, obviously know, they start off like really cute and lovely, and then all of a sudden they get their mind of their own and they become really independent. But it's definitely given me a different perspective. I initially just thought, everyone knows raising children are hard, but you start to realize it's challenging, but you absolutely love it. And then the things that you worried about in life are almost meaningless, because you've just got a little one to make sure that you can shape them and make sure they have the best opportunities. So now I look at life in such a different way, but in a real positive way.
That's brilliant. I'm so pleased that everybody's doing well. And of course, you had the perfect preparation for looking after a toddler, working with Ben Kay and Austin Healy. So what more could you possibly have wanted?
I love that. You're absolutely spot on. I think Austin Healy in particular gets a few lovely comments.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. Let's talk about your career, Maggie. Let's take you right back to the beginning, if I may. Growing up in South London in the early 80s, it wasn't the easiest of starts for you, was it? Your mum had to work so hard to provide the little things for you, and lots of trips in and out of hospital with some health issues. And education wasn't exactly embracing for you in those early years. How much has that shaped the Maggie that we see before us now, that tough upbringing that you had in Lewisham?
I think it did. So initially, I was born in Lewisham. Then, I guess my first part of my life was Lewisham, and then I moved to North London. Grew up in Edmonton in Enfield. So I guess overcoming those adversities were challenging, and when you're young, I think for all of us, you just don't really appreciate the hurdles, the challenges, the frustrations that may occur. You just get on with it, don't you, really? And not until now I'm older, I look back and think, oh, that wasn't easy at all. I'm pleased I got through it and I managed to become the person that I am today. And I guess, if I think about my upbringing, my mum worked so hard to ensure that I had, the best chance in life. Grew up in a council estate, and in a weird way, it was a happy and frustrating place to be. Lots of people from my school lived in that same council estate. It was very normal to have a single parent family. So it was a really interesting environment. So there's always people to sort of hang out with. But then at the same time, people who lived on that estate lacked aspiration and lacked motivation. So he kind of fell into the wrong crowd every now and again. And the school life, unfortunately, had a bit of an impact with that as well. So I didn't necessarily engage with the school content, but I still loved school. I loved going into school and meeting friends and socialising. I just didn't necessarily engage with some of the lessons. And I look back now and I definitely think it helped me progress. I'm much more disciplined. I think rugby is where it saved my life, if I'm honest. So at school, my PE teacher, Lisa Burgess, who obviously a Saracens lady, she introduced me to rugby, and then that really changed my life, because prior to that, I loved sport, really was a bit much of a football fan, to be honest, to my sins. And then she kind of encouraged me to take up rugby, and that's what really saved my life, because up to that point, I think, my life was very much focused on sort of being disruptive, and yeah, it's definitely helped give me shape and discipline, and has guided me to be a better person, which is what I am now, I like to think.
Yeah, so, and I was going to ask you about Lisa as well, because obviously she's integral in the history of Saracens women, and she was your PE teacher for that period of time. How was it that first time she got you to come along to Saracens training? That must have been a revelation for you, the opening of a new chapter in your life.
It was also quite daunting. I came from Edmonton, on this council estate. People loved and talked about football. That's all they focused on. And then to get onto the W6 bus, I think it was, from Edmonton Green all the way to Southgate, and then walked all the way up down the I forgot what the name of the road is, but up to Cockfosters to Bramley Road. Yeah. And actually being young and walking into that environment, I was really nervous. But then when I first got there and I met the under-16s women's coach, or girls coach, a lady called Katie Ball, I just fell in love with it, because she was lovely. The other young girls who were there were really welcoming, and I just thought, this is awesome. And to pick up a rugby ball and to do the things that you could do, tackle somebody and run, I was like, this is a really good sport, really enjoy it. And then I just gradually fell in love with it as time went on. And daunting experience, like I said, but it was a really nice place to go with those individuals in particular. I also didn't really appreciate how big the club was. It wasn't just the under 16 girls that went to that club. Then I started to see, obviously the men was, I think, based at the club at that time in terms of training wise, the professional men. So then to see the amateur men, seeing the senior women, I was just like, wow, this club, this small sort of building, has so many fantastic athletes, and I get to now be part of that.
And how different was that structure from, particularly on the women's side, from the Saracens women format that we see now? I mean, chalk and cheese, surely, from where the game's come to.
Yeah, so I guess when I came into the sport, women's rugby wasn't that popular, wasn't well known. Saracens women actually were top of the game. People wanted to play for Saracens. And the England women's team at the time were also quite flying. They were the best in Europe anyway. And when I came in, I was like, oh, this is a very different sport. Again, it wasn't really well known. And now, obviously now that I've left the sport, but working in a different way, it's amazing how people now talk about it. People now, you might see the odd person wear a jersey that has your surname on it. That was rare. That was very rare. It would never happen back in the day when I came into the sport, but now it's quite a common thing to think that people now talk about female athletes as rugby players, which is brilliant. So the time has changed, and also a lot of the athletes are athletes. They strength conditioning coaches, they have the physiotherapists, the medical doctors. There's people who are able to be some top athletes now, where before, when I came into sport, you had to do other jobs to make sure that you had the finances to be able to be a rugby player. So time has helped and has now improved the women's game.
Yeah. And despite all that, 2003 ticks round, and at the ripe old age of 19, you get a call up to play for England, but not as flanker, as inside centre.
That's correct. Steve, you've done your research. Well done. Look at you. You're on it. That's correct. Yeah, so 2003, called up for the England team, inside centre, scored my first try, my first cap. And I miss playing 12. I love playing 12. It's just a different mindset. I mean, I wasn't I wasn't a Farrell. I wasn't a playmaker 12. I was very much a smash it up 12. And got into the England squad. And then I remember doing well on my first attempt for England, and then picking up injury and losing form, and then getting dropped out of the squad. So I actually only got one cap, and then it took a whole year to come around again before I got a cap number 2. But that's when I basically realised I needed to change position and move to number 7. But people always say to me, the way it works in rugby, as you get older, the number on your back gets smaller, or lower. So that's how it worked for me. I started off as a 12 and then went way backwards.
Brilliant. And then, of course, 2010, the World Cup here in England. You're selected for that squad, comfortably make it out the group stages, face Australia, beat them quite comfortably, 15-0 in the semi-final.
Yeah.
And then, of course, that old foe, the Black Ferns, so you've got New Zealand in the final. Crushing. Talk me through that final.
It was also, I think the whole experience now even still kind of sits with you. You know, we think about England men just losing the football. Losing in a final is absolutely painful, and it sits with you for a very long time until you get the chance to have a go again in 4 years' time. So, I think back to 2010 and losing it by 3 points against New Zealand. So at one stage, the score was 10-all. And then I was hoping that we'd get to extra time and then we'd pull it back and win it. Unfortunately, literally, I think a minute before the final whistle blew, our England team gave away a penalty literally in their 22. Our 22. I can't remember. It's all a blur at the moment. But anyway, they got a penalty. New Zealand got a penalty and they got to kick it out the post and then they converted it. And I just thought, God, all that effort and, work to try and focus on this 180 minutes of our life, and we lost it by 3 points. So I look back at this moment and think devastated, proud as well, really proud to have got to the final, proud to have managed to have got as far as we did, but just devastated that we'd lost it by 3 points. But I do think us losing that final gave us strength to go forward after that, because we also got into the final in 2006 out in Canada and we lost to New Zealand there. But when I think about the World Cup final in 2006, I don't think we were the team that were ready to win that World Cup. Where in 2010, I felt that we were the team to win it, but errors, mistakes. Unfortunately, when people get to finals, their mind changes. You don't see the same player that you probably saw throughout the tournament, and that's what happened. We had a few mistakes, and that led to us losing that game. And then, it gave us strength for another 4 years.
Yeah, and wind that clock on. That Rugby World Cup cycle comes round, as it inevitably does. We find ourselves in France in 2014. You're back. You're at your next World Cup with the chance for redemption. Again, moving nicely through the group stages into those knockout sections. You find yourself up against the semi-final against Ireland. They don't put up too much opposition. And then it's into Canada for the final. And that chance to right what happened 4 years ago. Just, again, that's the pinnacle. That's the absolute peak. How does that feel as somebody to be involved in that, especially after what happened 4 years previously?
So I guess people always ask me, what's it like to win a World Cup? And I generally say to people, it's not any positive words around being ecstatic or happy or so on. Actually, it's just a relief, because we spent 12 years trying to get to that point, and when we finally got it, we're like, oh, I'm just relieved that we finally did it. And actually, it's sort of again, I'll hark back to the men's football. The guys finish second and they get their silver medal and they take it off. And people say that's disrespectful, but I always say I know what it's like to be second, and it's a horrible situation to be in. And then for the first time when you win it, you feel like, oh my God, I can keep this medal on, and I feel like I've deserved it, I've earned it. And that's what it felt like when we won that medal. I just thought, I just want to keep it on for as long as I possibly can. We've worked so hard to get to this point. I just feel relieved. I just feel like I want to rest now, have a cup of tea and get to bed. And that's what I did. I'm like the boring person in that team. They all went out and got a few drinks, when I was like, I'm gonna have a cup of tea. I'm gonna just chill right now, because we've done the job. But it was an amazing experience. We had lots of supporters over, which was brilliant, and to have it in France was almost like close to home. The crowds were good as well. So just to finally get there and do it was brilliant. The only one regret that I probably have from that World Cup final is I wish we'd played New Zealand.
Right.
Playing Canada in the final is awesome. Most importantly, we won the World Cup, something that anyone could take away from us. But I would love to have beaten New Zealand in the World Cup final, because that would have sort of made up for all the times that I've lost to them in a final.
Yeah.
And actually, Ireland played them in the semi-final and they beat them. So I'm like, good on them for doing. No, it's not semi-final. They beat them. I think it was a quarter-final. They beat them, and I was like, oh, good on them for doing that. But then I'm like, damn it, I was hoping that we would do it, but I that's the only one regret. I would love to have played New Zealand in the final and then actually had a crack at them again, because to think that we lost them twice in 2 previous World Cups, I would love to have beaten them, but I won't take it away from us. I'm really pleased that we won the World Cup and actually have that title to our names.
And let's not forget, in that period, it wasn't just about the World Cups. that England side notched up a rather impressive seven consecutive Six Nations.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, there's quite a few of them, and
yeah,
I think the tally's getting longer for some of those players now who are still there.
But I don't think we'll see a side dominate in the same way with the evolution of the women's game and you know the emergence of other nations. I think that's unheralded. I don't think you'll see anybody take that record off of us for quite some considerable time. And of course, that marked a pretty considerable attitude shift as well to the women's game. You know, all of a sudden we had World Cup winners, and that brought a new respect in some ways to the women's game, and an appreciation and an understanding and an integration really in terms of the women's game. And wasn't there a couple of points where the women were training with the fellas at Saracens?
Yeah, so a couple of us. So myself, a lady called Karen Andrews, and Amy Garnett, we were part of the Saracens Men's Academy at the University of Hertfordshire. So that's where we were based. And I mean, I remember training with the guys, and at the time, the people who were there were likes of Jamie George, Owen Farrell, George Cruz. I don't think Atoji was been about then. So you know, some of the guys who are there now were basically there. They were young, and I remember there was one session where Karen Andrews and Amy Garner didn't attend, but I went to the session. So just me on my own with all the other guys, and Eddie Jones was director of rugby for Saracens at the time. But he every now and again would come down and help coach a session with the academy boys. And he came to this one session, and I was there, and they were like, "Yeah, Maggie's fine. She can join in the session." And he was just like, "Whatever the boys do, she has to do it." And I was like, "That's fine." And I just remember us doing some tackling, because it was basically I think we were just playing a game. And I remember Owen Farrell coming at me, and I knew mentally in my head I was like, I have only one option: it's tackle him or step out the way, which is not going to happen. So yeah, I made a big tackle on him, and yeah, still to this day I look back and think it was a good session, because first time I had ever worked with Eddie Jones. You know, he's definitely a man who knows what he wants, and you've just got to crack on with it. And then to be able to train with the likes of Jamie George and Owen Farrell and so on was also a privilege, because these guys think in a different way, and the pace and the tempo is a different level as well. So I think it's definitely helped me as an athlete when I went on to play for England, because I knew how to think at a quicker rate and also play at a pace that was slightly different, and gave us an advantage, I think. So it was good to train with those guys, definitely, back then.
I think the best way to learn is to go out and practice. So, Jack, if you go in there, maybe as the tackler. Maggie?
I'm not going to tackle a lady.
This is Maggie, one of our greatest ever rugby players. You got a problem with that?
Well, yes, I mean, I do. I don't know how you were brought up, Lawrence, but I'm not tackling a lady. That will not be happening today. Sorry, Maggie.
Hey, so how about we swap you around then? Maggie tackles you.
I'm good with that.
Okay, fine, yeah.
All right. Go, Jack. Very brave.
Right, can we do the next drill now, please?
Yeah, let's go.
I'm done with this. Come on.
I think you're being very modest there, Maggie. I think the version of that story that I've heard is that Owen Farrell did end up flat on his back at the time.
Yeah. I think it's been elaborated over time, but no, I'm not going to complain.
Take it, claim it, have it anyway. And with your media work now, I mean, do your paths still cross with Eddie Jones? Do you still have much interaction with him?
Yeah, I still see Eddie every now and again. I remember 2019 Rugby World Cup. England were in they weren't in the same hotel as us in terms of pundits, but they were using the gym that we had in our hotel. So I would be in the gym when he's on the cross trainer. I remember the day after the final in 2019, he still came to the gym after the day after, and I remember being in the lift with him. But you didn't want to talk about it, just sort of have a good day. That was sort of like the old conversation that we've had. But yeah, I obviously do know of him, and he knows of me, and I say hello and so on. It's difficult in an environment where you're a pundit, aren't you? So you have to provide your opinion on the team, and that's always quite difficult. So I can understand when coaches and players don't like to get too, I guess, close to pundits, etc., because you know what they want to make sure what they say is definitely kept private. So, but when I do see him, I definitely make sure I say hello. He's a good guy. He's a really good chap.
And you're absolutely right. You know, as a pundit, you are paid to have an opinion, and that's what people want from you. They want your knowledge and your understanding, but they don't want you to sit on the fence and be wishy-washy, do they? Okay, so that in some ways brought down the curtain on your international career, because you retired in 2014 with 74 caps and 28 tries, and the heady accolade of being a member of BBC Sports Personality Team of the Year for that year as well, which is for somebody that grew up with the BBC, and that Sunday night watching Sports Personality was the highlight of my calendar. That was must have been quite an accolade. But for those that don't know, you also won the Pat Marshall Award, didn't you? Tell our members a little bit about that, for those that might not be aware of exactly what the Pat Marshall Award is.
Yeah, so the Pat Marshall Award is basically the rugby writers' Pat Marshall Award. So all the rugby writers, Sunday Times, Telegraph, etc., they basically have a committee that make these nominations at the end of the year, and one of the nominations is for Player of the Year. So I got that, and the people I had to beat to get that Pat Marshall Award. And the main big Pat Marshall Award, which is what I got, was got to beat Richie McCaw, which is pretty cool.
So you got your victory. You got your defeat of New Zealand.
I beat a Kiwi, yeah.
You beat a Kiwi.
To get the award was amazing, just because I was recognised. To be recognised by those rugby writers was quite special. And also the Pat Marshall one had never been won by a woman. So to be the first woman to actually get that, and now many other women have, I think Emily Scarrett's got it recently. So to get that award was really massive, because I felt like I was maybe taking the first step for many others to follow. And yeah, it's probably, out of all my accolades, it's one of the ones that sit definitely high up, because it meant a lot, because it came from people who are real experts in the world of rugby.
Yeah, and of course there can only ever be one first. So as you say, to be the first woman to be nominated and to beat the likes of Richie McCaw to that award, that really is, as you say, I can see why that's very special on your vast bookshelf of awards that I'm sure you've got there. So
I know Richie McCaw's got it though. I mean, it's definitely, I could see it in his face whenever I see him. I'm like, oh, he's like, yeah. I can't believe I lost that Pat Marshall.
I bet he still mentions it. Yeah, good. And then obviously onto domestic rugby. You played on for another year or so, and then finished that particular chapter in your life in 2015. And your last game for Saracens, a 30-0 victory and another try scored.
Yeah, so that was the final of the Premiership. We played Wasps, and apologies. When was that? No, that wasn't the last game. It's a bit of a blur, but I remember my last game was actually for the cup. It was in the Women's Cup, and I basically we won quite convincingly. But to think my last season was probably my hardest season, because deep down you're going to stop at the end of this year, and you want to make sure that you can give it your all. You want to make sure that you win the Premiership, win the other titles that were up for grabs. And thankfully the team did it, and did it really well, and I was able to finish, I guess, had been a really good career by winning a World Cup with the England team, and then finishing the Premiership with the Saracens ladies. So it was a nice way to finish, and to even score a try is always a nice way to end as well.
Yeah, and then of course, rather than doing what the vast majority of people would have done and putting your feet up and taking it easy, I noticed when I was doing my research that you and I have something in common. And rather than just taking it easy, you decided that you would try for the Olympics. And that's not what we have in common. I haven't tried for the Olympics, but I did used to throw the shot and the discus. I was a 3A standard athlete as well in my youth. So how on earth did that come about, Maggie?
Yeah, so initially I started off being a shot putter and discus thrower, and then I found sort of rugby later on. And then I thought, when I retired, I was like, I really do miss athletics. I miss being part of that world. And, naturally, I'm like, God, I'm never going to get to Olympics as a rugby player, but I definitely think I can make it as a shot put thrower. So I basically retired from rugby and then recruited the team around me to try and get myself to the Olympics. But I basically didn't give myself enough time. I mean, Rio Olympics for me at the time was probably, I didn't have very long to get myself ready and selected. And to be honest, a lot of the women who I was up against were slightly bigger and slightly stronger than me. I mean, I could be their shot put. That's how bigger and stronger they were than me. But I've always known shot put to be a powerful sport. So I had the power. I just didn't have that additional, I guess, if you've got a bit of height on you, that does help to get a bit more leverage. So I was always up against it, really. I'm glad I put myself out there to go for it, though. I definitely did. But it's one of those things where you go, if you don't reach for the stars, you never know what you're going to find. And I reached for it, and it led to other opportunities. But yeah, I would love to have gone to Olympics. It's one of those things that every athlete says they want to do.
Yeah.
I want to go to World Cup. I've done that, but I would love to go to Olympics, and I'll never get to do that in my career. But what's nice that rugby is now in the Olympics. I would never been a sevens player at that level to compete. But yeah, I gave it a good go, and it's good to talk to a fellow shot putter / discus thrower, because you appreciate how hard it is, and it's not an easy sport. It's really about power, it's about technique, and also being on your own. I think I found that the hardest, because used to being in a team with lots of different types of people, but then to be on my own and have to train with one coach, I found that really strange. But I'm glad I gave it a go and really attempted to try and get myself there. But yeah, unfortunately missed out.
Yeah. And when we talk about those blue ribboned events, and you talk about World Cups and Olympics, of course, in the rugby world, one of those blue ribboned is, of course, the Lions, and we're just taking some tentative steps into the tour in South Africa this year. Not the tour that we would have hoped for. I should be going there on Friday, so it's definitely not the tour that I was hoping for as a fan. But you're obviously involved on the media side of things now. Lots of issues with COVID and testing and people isolating and what have you. We've got an A game due on Wednesday. Are you hopeful that we'll see a competitive 3-test series?
I think it's interesting. You just said 2 bits there, isn't it? I hope that we do get 3 tests out. But my second hope is that I hope that we get 3 good competitive tests out. You know, what you don't want to see is South Africa in particular be hampered due to the fact that they've had very limited preparation, and at the moment COVID is quite rife through the camp for them. So you think to yourself, you do want them to turn up against the Lions. The Lions have had their warm-ups. Look, not all the opposition they've played against have really tested them. I say that Sharks, to be fair, ran in a few tries against them on Saturday, but not really been the test that you would actually expect as warm-ups. So I want the 3 tests to be really competitive. You want it to be a representation of what true Lions tour is all about. And I think it will. When you get done 3 tests, as you know, like when you watch it as a fan, you know that these players, whether you're competing against the Lions or whether you are a Lion, they give it their all, and you want to make sure the memory that they have in that jersey is one that that will sit with them in a positive way for the next 12 years of their life. So I'm really hopeful, and I think Lions in particular are doing everything they possibly can to make sure that this tour goes ahead and it's completed. Ben Calverley's been interviewed a few times now, and he's very certain that now that they're going to Cape Town, and obviously they're sea level, COVID is a little bit less of an issue, I guess, in comparison to what it was in Joburg. So I'm really hopeful, and I think there's talk at the moment that the 2nd and the 3rd test will also be moved to Cape Town. So if that happens, I think that will hopefully ensure that the test series continues on. Yeah.
And as you say, it's vitally important for South African rugby as much as it is for the Lions. I mean, you've been there, you've coached, you've shared your knowledge and your experience in South Africa. It's a religion over there, isn't it? It really is something that they couldn't imagine life without. So it must be very difficult for the domestic game as well to be facing these challenges.
Yeah, you do feel for those out in South Africa. I mean, you feel for those who have got COVID, who are going through a horrendous situation, and we forget that they're going through a 3rd wave. It's just an awful place, and awful situation to be in for them who live in that country. The rugby's been hampered significantly. It's just, I think for a lot of them who are rugby fans out there are hoping that the rugby does go ahead, because it gives them something positive to focus on, and it gives them hope again, like it has done for us. We've loved having rugby on the telly, and it's definitely helped with our mood. So I hope it goes ahead. It'll benefit those obviously over here, and hopefully those who in South Africa who love their rugby. It would be great for them to see it. But I can understand when people do have their comments and concerns about the tour going ahead. You've got to put everything in perspective, really. And long as they're doing the right things to ensure that the players are protected, staff protected, there's no further spread, then I don't see why not the tour shouldn't go ahead.
Of course, with your role on the RFU Council, you'll be very aware of exactly how the reach and influence of the wider game is in local communities worldwide as well. Just tell our members a little bit about your involvement there and specifically your role within that RFU Council.
Yeah, so I'm the council. I'm one of two national members. So I'm a national member, and Martin Corrie, former England captain, is the other national member. So we don't have a specific remit. We're basically on the council to be able to help contribute to improve our game across the board, which is quite a nice broad remit to have, where other people who are on the council have a specific remit. So they might be there for women and girls, or they might be there for specifically for their CB. And my role is to, I'm also on other committees as well within the council, and one of the committees that I'm on is the Diversity and Inclusion Implementation Working Group. It's a bit of a mouthful, but that's about trying to improve the diversity and inclusion within the game and the leadership mainly, not necessarily on the pitch. It's mainly about, throughout the game in terms of leadership roles. And I absolutely love what I do being on the council, because it is all about shaping our game, and it's about improving it, helping support and understand, from all different levels, how we can make our game better. It's not just obviously on the pitch; it's on the off the pitch as well. But it's always a challenge as well. If you ever sit in a council meeting, there are discussions, there's debates, and not everyone agrees. And it's about trying to get consensus, and it's making sure that we're thinking about the game, putting the game first at all times, really. So yeah, I've been part of the council now since 2016. Because I remember the reason I got onto the council was because Jason Leonard was the president of the council, and president of the RFU, and he basically said we obviously getting new national member vacancies coming up. Would you want to be on the council? And at that time, I'd never thought about it. I mean, the idea initially of being in a council was not appealing to me whatsoever. But then it made me think, you get to make a difference from the inside rather than being on the outside, throwing stones, I guess. So I was like, yeah, definitely want to do that. And yeah, I've never looked back really. So been on the council for a while now. But yeah, our tenure is our term, is only 9 years. So I soon will be off. But I have goals to hopefully progress further up the ladder. So we'll see if I can make it. But my role at the council is to basically make sure I help contribute and change the game from within.
Yeah, and obviously looking at the work you do there, and then obviously taking your skill set and your mindset and your passion and your strength into the business world as well, with your speaking on topics such as the psychology of winning and challenging perceptions and working under pressure. That it's something that, from afar, as a member of that sort of wider Saracens family, I think we're all immensely proud of what you're doing and the journey that you're taking people on, and the way that you're opening people's eyes to things. I think that's absolutely incredible work that you're doing, and along with your TV and your media work and your charity work and your brand ambassador and your Telegraph. How have you found the time to talk to us for half an hour today?
Oh, Steve, I've always got time for you, I tell you. And do you know what? It's so nice when you read all that out and think, God, we all think everyone has things in their life that we always are balancing, and I guess it's trying to make sure you know where you want to go. And I think I'm very fortunate to have the career and the lifestyle that I have, and I thank rugby for it. That's why I wanted to speak to you, Steve, and talk to the other Saracens members, because it's about rugby's given a lot to me, and it's really important that I always give back. And I'm very thankful of what I've achieved, but now I just need to keep working hard to hopefully inspire others, really, because I was very fortunate from North London to get that step, and now I hope that someone else from a different walk of life gets the same chance and hopefully exceeds what I've achieved. Yeah.
And we've got this wonderful catchment of the Saracens Academy, and there'll be kids in there, that look up to people like you and Poppy and Bryony Cleal and people like that are just raising that profile, and gender, background, history, culture, heritage. None of these are blockers They are building stepping stones for you to go on and achieve what you want to do. And you mentioned obviously charity in amongst that lot, and we are delighted to be able to make a donation on your behalf to the Diana Brindlecombe Animal Rescue, a rather unusual charity there, Maggie. Tell us a little bit more about how you've been involved with those guys.
Yeah, first I want to say thank you very much for making the donation. It really does mean a lot, and it means a lot to the charity in particular. I'll say basically the name in short is Debark. I always find it hard trying to pronounce the whole entire name, so you did very well, Steve. Basically the focus that they have is obviously looking after animals and rescuing them. They do a lot of work particularly around schnauzers. So I've got a schnauzer dog. And they do a lot of work, particularly around rescuing schnauzers and from other countries. And I've just been so amazed by the work that they do. So I go down there every now and again to try and help out where possible. So sometimes we might foster a dog. Sometimes we might just have a dog overnight just to help them out. Be part of all their sort of fundraising activities. I just make sure I support them because they do such a good job. And the founder passed away, but it's all basically been, they've continued it on. And that's why I just think the work that they do, I've seen what they do, and I just think to myself, what commitment, what determination to ensure that these animals in particular have the best of lives. Have a best of lives, the second life, because unfortunately their first attempt was, unfortunately, people treated them badly, and I want to be part of their opportunity to have a better life. So, yeah, any support that can be provided to them can only help, So, yeah, thank you again.
No problem.
And if you like schnauzers, they're definitely a good place to get one from.
And we'll distribute the link to all of our members because I know there's a lot of our members that are animal lovers as well, and I'm sure we'll be delighted to try and help and spread the word. And personally, I don't know how you foster them. I'd want to keep them all. I wouldn't give them back. I'd end up with a rescue centre of my own, I think.
Do you know what? It's like when you have a dog, when you just see what they've gone through and you think, I just want to help out more than anything. Sometimes we go down there quite a lot and we might help out cleaning out their the kennels and so on, and you just think, it's amazing. Just amazing. We all love animals. So, yeah, it's just a privilege to be able to help out with it where we can when we're there.
Brilliant people. There we go. Well, Maggie, thank you so much for spending some time with us this morning. We could have chatted to you for hours, and who knows, maybe when the COVID restrictions are all lifted, you can come to an event at the StoneX and bring Artie along and introduce him to the rest of the Saris family, and we can sit and spend an evening with you, and our members can come and meet you and give their own personal thanks for everything you've done for the Saracens family. So in the meantime, all that remains is for me to, again, thank you for your time. Enjoy the rest of the Lions tour. Fixtures come out tomorrow, Tuesday the 13th, so we'll all be keeping a keen eye back in the Premiership where we think we belong. So, and then obviously we've got the women's game to come as well. So, exciting times to be a Saracens, isn't it?
Absolutely. I can't wait to start the season. And like I said, now that the boys are back into the Premiership, it's going to be, excited by it. I feel like it's been, I know the season finished a few months ago, but it feels like it's been a long wait. So I can't wait till they all come back and for the women and the men to really have a good year.
Brilliant. That's great. Maggie, thank you so much. Thank you for spending some time with us today.
No worries.
So fancy getting her name on the scoreboard again. Maggie Alphonsi does the hard stuff. Well, of all the players that we've seen in the World Cup, she's got to be right up there in terms of the amount of work that she puts in. Tackles made there, turnovers, tries. She's got to be one of the best players in the world, isn't she?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you can't argue just with the simple stats. The number of tackles she's made really give people a lift, really make other people want to match that.
It's a knock-on. Zola Brennan! Oh, big hit there from Alphonsi. Huge hit. But it is extremely physical out there, isn't it?
It certainly is. Well, that hit that we just saw from Maggie Alphonsi, she'll be looking to set her stall out on this World Cup, and there you go. A perfect textbook tackle.
Alphonsi's got a reputation, and she's chipping. Waterman's chasing. Briggs, nasty one for her to take, and great tackle. 15 on 15 lead. Briggs has been caught, and Maggie Alphonsi gets the fourth try. She's had a England get the try bonus point, 25-0, and just reward for this quite superb flanker called Maggie Alphonsi. Alphonsi, a very special player. Turner, McLean, Alphonsi through the middle, she's going and scoring! Finishes off this poor match.
Not just scoring the try, I'm sure that's why Maggie Alphonsi felt the lead and everybody else.
She's done a lot of the hard work, the tackling, the stealing. Now the scoring. Look at the footwork there, not just bashing it up, punching a hole, but looking for the space.
Yeah, and I think she enjoyed that one, didn't she? It was the set move that found that little bit of space, but the pace and the power that she